Hey folks, Pete here from Irish Times, and I think you can agree that Thailand is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world, and because of that it attracts people from all over the world, and that has benefited me living here because I got to meet many different people from all walks of life and learn new cultures and stuff like that, stuff I would never have experienced back in Dublin. But in living here for the last 10 years, I have noticed that there is a certain kind of person, not everybody, but there is a certain kind of person, I call them a lost soul. And today I'm going to tell you a story about a guy I met over here who I could consider a lost soul. So the year is 2014. I got a job in a school in North Bangkok, Lat Phrao area, and it was a pretty big school. There was about 10 foreign teachers from America, England, Ireland, Australia. Yeah, so we had a big crew and we had our own office. Now usually if you work in a school, you might have Thai teachers in the office with you, Thai staff. But for some reason we just had our own office, so we had 10 guys from all parts of the world in our own office. Yeah, so you can imagine we had a good bit of banter. You could speak freely, and yeah, we had a good time. So there was one guy there. He was about in his mid-40s at the time. For the sake of the story, we're going to call him Alan. Now Alan, mid-40s, from the UK, had been in Thailand about 7 years at that stage. Now Alan was like very, very, very intelligent. Now when I'm saying intelligent, I mean like genius level. If I had to describe him, I would probably say he's like Stephen Hawking, kind of like a nerdy Stephen Hawking type. He was kind of a short, like very skinny guy. He looked the part of a scientist. He looked like a scientist. So Alan was a super clever guy, right? Except he was an alcoholic. He would come in every day to school, red face. He would have the shakes. Now I never saw anyone shaking from alcohol before, but he would be shaking. And there's been a couple of times where I caught him having a drink. He would bring in a bottle of 7-Up, Sprite, so it's clear, it looks like water, and he'd have vodka in it. And he'd be sipping that to get away, only to get rid of the shakes. Now, that's alcoholism, But he was a functioning alcoholic. He could do his job. He was teaching science in the school, and he was very good at his job. And I think that's how he got away with it. I'm pretty sure the Thai staff knew that he was drinking. They had to have known. He would come in with a red face every day, and he just looked like death. So he would come in to school, and he would sit in the office, and his Mondays were especially bad. Hold on now, I'm just going to go through this little tunnel. We're going through a tunnel here. Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying, he would squeeze in here. He would come into school. Mondays were especially bad, and then like the other guys in the office, they kind of figured out that he was really hungover all the time. So there was this running joke where the lads in the office would talk about food, like, some guy would say, I had a bacon sandwich yesterday, and the bacon wasn't fresh, and there was maggots on it was mold on it, and all this kind of stuff. And then Alan would get up and he'd have to vomit, and he'd run to the toilet, and that was kind of the joke that went on. Not all the time, but it just happened. It just happened. So one day it was only myself and Alan in the office, and I asked him, like, what's going on? Why are you drinking so much? Like, are you okay? And he opened up to me. He told me his story. So he told me that 20 years previously he was doing a PhD in Oxford University, and he had a girlfriend for a couple of years, and he said it was the happiest time of his life. He was in a relationship. He was studying very hard, he had just one friend, his best friend, who was also studying at the university. And he said that's all he ever had. He only ever had one friend, that guy. And what happened was, one day, his girlfriend ended the relationship. She broke up with him, and she left him for his best friend. He wasn't really a friend then, was he? Yeah. So, and Alan just had a total meltdown. He said he just lost the plot. He just started drinking. He couldn't focus. He got really angry, fuming over a space of, he said, a week. And then he said, like, one day he was at home and he just snapped, and he took a knife. He got the knife and he said, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna kill this so-called best friend. So he knew his schedule because they studied together, so he knew he's gonna be in this lab by himself at this time. So off Alan went into the university with the knife, and when he got there he hid in a cupboard, and he was hiding in his cupboard. He said he was there for a couple of hours, maybe, no, not a couple of hours, I think he said 2 hours or an hour and a half ish, waiting for this guy to show up. And as he was waiting there, he was just contemplating what he was going to do. He said he was still really angry. He said he still was going to go ahead and do it. And then when he was in the cupboard, he heard two voices, and it turns out that it was his ex-girlfriend and the guy. They had both came into the lab. And he said as soon as he heard the voices and how they were laughing together and the chit-chat, he just said he couldn't go through with it. He just, he wasn't able to do it. Yeah, so he couldn't go through with it. He backed down. But he said the only reason he backed down is because he heard her voice. He said if that guy turned up alone, he said I would have killed him, and then I would have hung myself. He'd already planned it out. Like, that's the way it was going to go. And so going on from that, he ended up quitting his PhD. Just said he couldn't handle it anymore. Quit the PhD, and then he spiraled off into this deep dark depression where he was drinking, he stayed at home with his parents, he was unemployed. This went on for a couple of years, into his late 20s. And then he left the UK and he went to work in Greece. He got a job in the hotel industry in Greece, a lot of tourism in Greece. Yeah, so he did that, and then he was obviously involved with the bar scene and alcohol there as well, so the alcoholism kept going. And then he ended up coming to Thailand when he was in his early 40s. So that's an example of what I would consider a lost soul. A very nice guy, very, very intelligent, super intelligent, book smart, very, very book smart, but just, mental health wasn't 100% there. And I'll give you an example of just, he didn't have any friends. Like when I'm talking about drinking alcohol, he would drink at home alone. Didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have any friends. He wouldn't even go to bars. When we finished our contract, we went to Phuket, all of us, for a weekend. We all went to Phuket, and he came with us, but we didn't see him. He came with us and he stayed in the hotel drinking alone. Never saw him. And it's just terrible. Like, I often think, what is he doing now? I haven't heard too much about him. I often think, where is he now? What's he doing? I haven't heard anything about him in a couple of years. Last time I heard, he was still doing the same thing. He's just an example of a lost soul. That's what I can say, and I feel very sorry for the guy. And life dealt him a hard blow, and some people are able to handle these type of things, some people aren't. So that's why mental health is very important, and you've probably seen a lot of other people in Thailand that suffer with mental health. I mean, it is common that you see these lost souls, and usually something bad has happened to them back in their home country. That's usually what has happened. I know that's a bit of a morbid story, right? So we'll finish on a good note, right? I was in a taxi yesterday, 2 taxis in fact. I was going to immigration. The first taxi I got in, the taxi man fixes his mask straight away and he says to me, "How long have you been in Thailand?" And I said, "Don't worry about it, mate, many years, like, don't worry about COVID." And he was cool. And then the second taxi that I got into, same story again. Taxi man fixes his mask, makes sure that it's on right, and he looks at me and says, "How long have you been in Thailand?" And I said, "Mate, I just arrived. I just landed in the airport and I took a left turn and I missed the quarantine. No one stopped me." And his face, should have seen his face. His face just dropped. You no do quarantine? I was like, "Yeah, no, nobody stopped me." Oh. Please subscribe, share and like if you liked the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.